got your back. I'll do whatever it takes. You're gonna bring it to me. You try to lie to me, I will kill everything you love.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 action film Black Lotus. The film is directed by Todor Chapanov and it stars Rico Verhoeven and Frank Grillo. Now the film is set in Amsterdam and it follows Rico Verhoeven's character Mathieu, who he used to be in the military, like this SWAT team type thing. While undertaking a mission, his best friend is killed and he ends up blaming himself. So he leaves and he ends up kind of roaming, wandering about. He makes his way to Amsterdam and he calls at the house of his best friend to see the wife of his best friend and his best friend's little daughter, who he is the godfather of. While there, he reconnects with them. The little girl likes him, he spends a lot of time with them. However, her new partner, Paul, who is like this financial whiz, has lost a lot of money of the local gangster, played by Frank Grillo, Saban. And Saban essentially targets the family, kidnaps the child, which sends Mathieu on a one-man revenge mission to get this little girl back. Right, what are my thoughts on Black Lotus? Well, this film is a little bit of a cross between Man on Fire and Taken. If you're going to try and copy two action films, you know, there are two decent ones there to try and copy, I suppose. The question is, does this film do it particularly well? The answer is no, not really. Not when you compare it to films like that, anyway. This film, while it's fairly low budget, it's got a decent amount of production values going for it, a decent budget, so on and so forth. Quite a simple story, I suppose, which I'm always thankful for in some of these low budget films. They overcomplicate them with silly plot lines and overly convoluted stories, and thankfully, save the Lord, this film is a fairly simple premise. It is really just how I explained it at the beginning. You know, this guy who's trying to redeem himself, reconnects with this family, the girl gets kidnapped and he goes after the people that have kidnapped the girl. It is really just that simple. They try and throw in like this Interpol type story that threatens to kind of over convolute it, but it never really does get in the way massively, sort of thing. I think the issue, well, there's quite a few issues with this film, but one of them is, I suppose, is Rico Verhoeven. Verhoeven, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, my understanding is, and I don't recall seeing him in a film before, my understanding is he's like former kickboxer, well-known kickboxer, who is obviously moving into movies now. And the thing is, he looks like an ex-kickboxer. He looks like he's had his face kicked around a bit, sort of thing. He's got the cauliflower ears almost, and nose here, there, and everywhere. It's probably been broke a few times. I would say that the screen doesn't necessarily love him, but he's a towering figure. Physique-wise and presence-wise, it works. Personality-wise and performance-wise, it just doesn't. As you would expect, and I don't want to go in too hard on his acting here because he's not an actor at the end of the day. He's trying to be an actor, I suppose. It ain't great. It just isn't, and I think the problem is as well is there's absolutely no emotion in any of his line delivery at any point really in the film. There are some scenes that it does call for it, and he's just not capable of delivering. Now the film sometimes does play on that a little bit, tries its best to play on it a little bit, but it just doesn't pull it off. And unfortunately, when he's carrying this film, he just doesn't have the charisma, personality, and acting chops to do it. Physically, great. When he's doing the action scenes, I don't have any complaints at all. He's obviously he's very, very skilled in fighting, and because he's such a huge guy, you know, the way some of the fight scenes are filmed are done really quite well, and you feel his power on screen. So that I don't have an issue with at all. And they don't turn him into like the Superman either. You know what I mean? He gets beaten down a few times, so again, it doesn't necessarily feel unrealistic in how they're portraying him on screen. Again, I feel like I feel like I'm on a broken record here. I'm gonna talk about Frank Grillo. Now, he's in this film. He's the bad guy, and actually, I think Frank Grillo would be a great bad guy in a like a big budget film. You know, if someone wants to take that chance and cast him as one, and I know he's done it in Captain America as Crossbones and all that kind of stuff, but that was quite a small part. I think Frank Grillo. I'm not saying he doesn't do a good job here, because he does. He's fine as the bad guy. And what I'm saying is, what are you doing in this film, Frank Grillo? You're better than this. I must see at least, it feels like 10 films a year that Frank Grillo appears in. Maybe more. Maybe slightly less. It feels like a lot, and he's diluting his filmography, you know. Is, for me, reducing any star power he's ever had. And I do honestly think Frank Grillo could have been a big star. I think he just missed that boat. He aged out, I think. But this type of film does not do him. It doesn't help him at all. So yeah, it winds me up when I see people like Frank Grillo in a movie like this. I understand it when you see people like Mel Gibson and even Nicolas Cage, even though his star has risen a little bit now. But when you see some of these aging stars doing movies like this, okay. But I think Frank Grillo could still offer a lot more, and it just gets on my nerves. So that's my interjection of that over with. And another one of the problems with this film is it just takes far too long to get going. Far too long. And the longer it goes, the more opportunities you've got to see this guy, Rico Verhoeven, not act, or not being able to act. You know what I mean? There's just not enough action in this film, and it takes probably... I didn't time it, to be honest, but it certainly felt well over an hour before we got anything what you could describe as action. There's a lot of build-up. You know, you've got this gangster, you know, putting pressure on someone because he wants his money back. You've got Interpol putting pressure on, you know, this sort of thing. And then you've got Frank Grillo looking for the mole in Interpol and all this kind of stuff. So you've got all these kind of stuff going off, and it just takes too long for all the pieces to kind of fall together, for the girl to get kidnapped, and for Matteo to kind of go around kicking ass. And it just, yeah, it just drags a little bit. Once the film gets going, once Matteo starts chasing down the bad guys and looking for the girl, it's pretty relentless then. It just depends whether you can take the film up to that point. If you've got the patience to sit through it, because while Frank Grillo's fine in this film as the villain, he's not in it enough to warrant you sitting through the initial parts of the film. So this is a bit of a mixed bag. It's not a film I can strongly recommend. There are aspects in it that are decent, but there's also a lot of things that are wrong with this film at the same time. So it's probably one that most of you will want to avoid, unless you're one of these people out there that like to check out all the kind of middling type action films that are just being released, sort of thing. So, or if you're a fan of Frank Grillo, maybe, or even a fan of Rico Verhoeven, if you're a martial arts fan, that sort of thing. You want to see how he's doing on screen. Check this one out. But everyone else probably want to avoid. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.